Good evening, everyone. Before we move into the formal portion of the program, tonight we have to have a special public hearing. This is a combined study session and regular meeting of the Board of Education. In December, we only have the one. Mrs. Patterson is coming back from an out-of-town trip, and so I'm standing in her stead until she arrives. The public meeting, as dictated by state statute, a public hearing will now be held to allow public comment from parents, staff, and community members to address the board on the 2019-2020 proposal of opening school on a date more than 10 days prior to the first Monday in September, as provided in section 171.031, paragraph 3 of the revised statutes of Missouri. So this is a public hearing for anyone to offer comments. The public hearing is now open. If anyone wishes to offer comments, please come forward. The public hearing is now closed. Thank you. And so now we go back to the normal meeting, and Stephen.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Madison Gong, who is representing Wilsons Creek Intermediate School. Madison, I'm going to stand up here so you can see. Madison won first place among fifth graders during the SPS math tournament for fourth and fifth graders last month. In addition to her individual achievement, Madison's team also won first place in the fifth grade division. Very impressive. She participates in Math Club and STEAM Club and is an avid reader. Madison also attends Wings and plans to attend the Scholars Program at Central next year. Her teacher and classmates describe Madison as smart, responsible, friendly, and witty. So at this time, we invite Madison and her family members and principal, Mrs. Karen Christie, to stand for recognition for all that they do. We want to acknowledge your support as well. Okay, so now if you're able to please rise and join us, Madison will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. It's the flag right there, okay?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll give this to you, and we're going to take your picture right here, okay? As we move forward with honoring excellence tonight, we have the honor of recognizing the Glendale High School boys swim team. The team brought home a second place finish in the Class 1 State High School Swimming Championships in November. In addition to the team's overall performance, team member Cole Earl dominated in the diving competition, taking first place with an 80-point lead over his closest competitor.
That is dominating.
So we'd like for the team to come forward, and I'm going to brag about their individual achievements and team achievements as well.
The hardware.
Other students who placed at state are Eli Andrews, and raise your hands please when I call your name. Fill in on this side as well so they can see you. We have Eli Andrews. Where are you, Eli? He's not here, okay. 16th in 100 breaststroke. Sam Beatty, 2nd in the 50 freestyle and 4th in the 100 freestyle. Lucas Chadwell, 15th in the 100 backstroke. Trey Flower, 5th in 100 backstroke. Michael Jasinski, 5th in the 200 freestyle and 4th in the 500 freestyle. Colin McNew, 13th in 200 freestyle and 10th in the 500 freestyle. And Tayton Thompson, 13th in diving. The 200 freestyle relay team placed second, and that included Jack Beatty, Caleb Fisher, Michael Jasinski, and Sam Beatty. The 400 freestyle relay team placed third and included Colin McNew, Caleb Fisher, Trey Flower, and Michael Jasinski. And the 200 medley relay team placed fourth with Trey Flower, Eli Andrews, Sam Beatty, and Caleb Fisher. Join us in congratulating the Glendale swim team and their coach, Steve Boyd.
Nice work, congratulations.
And now we will be recognizing our JAG students. We have the opportunity to celebrate their accomplishments. They participate in the Jobs for America's Graduate Program. So I would like these students to come forward when I call their name. We have Delijah Ellis, Ethan Golden, Riley Thoreau, and Rita Bryson. And I'm going to brag about each of them. Delijah was first recognized in this room back in August. She has continued her efforts during her senior year. A few of those highlights: she was elected JAG Vice President of Leadership Development. She achieved over 90% of attendance and passed all of her first quarter classes. She attended the National Student Leadership Academy in Washington, D.C., where she shared a conversation with Governor Parson. She led the Studi Printing Emporium to its biggest sales quarter in 3 years, and she has been accepted to OTC, where she is trying to decide between pursuing a degree in culinary arts or nursing. Ethan has a great story. He shared at the JAG initiation and installation ceremony in October. Ethan came to Studi in January. Over the summer, he dedicated himself to his education and has accomplished many great things, including being elected JAG Vice President of Career Development. He joined the JAG Media class and attended a special marketing presentation at Central Bank. He achieved 100% attendance and obtained 4.25 credits during the first quarter. He attended the National Student Leadership Academy in Washington, D.C., where he represented JAG Media, took some pictures of Delijah's conversation with Governor Parson, and he got a picture with Governor and Mrs. Parson as well. He worked with Delijah to help organize the 3rd annual JAG Career Fair, which will take place tomorrow, right? And after graduating this year, Ethan plans to become a science teacher. Riley took JAG last year and attended the Career Development Conference in Jefferson City. Riley was elected Vice President of Community Service. She's a member of the Studi Printing Emporium, where she helped sell over 400 shirts in 9 weeks. She achieved over 90% attendance and passed all of her classes first quarter. She helped plan and worked during Studi Game Night, which helped raise funds for Movember, a men's health awareness and research fundraiser. She attended the National Student Leadership Academy in Washington, and based on her work in JAG, Riley has identified veterinary science as her career choice, and she's been working as part of an internship at Dickerson Park Zoo this fall. Rita is new to JAG this year, but she's already made a big impact. The Parson family sponsored an essay contest for all JAG programs this year, with one winner from each program answering this question: what are the characteristics of a good citizen, and how do you think JAG will help you develop those traits? Rita's essay was selected from Studi, and on November 30th, she accompanied her mother, Christine, and her 11-month-old son, Marshawn, to the governor's mansion for a tour and participation in the annual Christmas tree lighting. So Marshawn was a big hit. He was charming enough and got a lapel pin from the governor, and Rita represented SPS well, and I know they posted several photos on social media as well. Rita is slated to graduate next year and is interested in attending OTC or Missouri State to major in business administration. Let's give our students. And kudos to Mr. Douglas as well, who I know is a great mentor for them. So thank you all very much. We'll now move forward with our honoring excellence. We would like to recognize Mr. Kerry Sykes, who is a distinguished math teacher. Mr. Sykes, could you come forward, please? How are you? Good. So Mr. Sykes is a 4th grade teacher at Gray Elementary School, and he serves as SPS Math CDC Chairman. In November, Mr. Sykes was named Outstanding Elementary Math Teacher by the Missouri Council of Teachers of Mathematics. He was one of 6 educators who were recognized across Missouri as outstanding educators, but Mr. Sykes alone was recognized as the top elementary teacher committed to teaching mathematics. Mr. Sykes demonstrates his love for math every day in the classroom, and he is dedicated to helping his students prepare to use math to tackle real-world problems. Congratulations, Mr. Sykes.
There's his change one right there.
He's got a great following here
Yes,
tonight.
He does.
Yay, match.
So now we will move forward with our Power of One team recognition. As you know, we are celebrating great teams who collaborate in SPS this year. And our November Power of One story features a special team from both Field Elementary and Pipkin Middle School. Here is that story.
I actually met Julie Johnson over at Pipkin about 4 years ago when we were at both an Ignite school.
We've collaborated with Field several times in the past, and we wanted to combine poetry and the original 13 colonies.
The poetry slam last year went really well, but this year it's like we got to go to Pipkin, watch all of their students present their poetry, which was really, really cool, which kind of gave our kiddos like that confidence and, oh, this is what it's going to look like and this is what I'm going to do, and then ask questions and, you know, kind of had like mentors in them in a way.
For the 8th graders, having an actual audience is always a good thing, so that they knew that they needed to be prepared to discuss the colonies and the types of poetry and types of figurative language that they used. And I think for the 3rd graders, it was just fun to see what a middle school was like.
When you have that collaboration with other middle school teachers and, you know, sit down with them and they think the way you think and you can talk about students, it just, I don't know, it just gives you a sense of relief and a sense of, okay, they're in good hands and we're all kind of on the same page as far as what we want them to be doing.
Just seeing the 8th graders collaborate with the 3rd graders and vice versa, and then the opportunity that the 8th grade teachers had to collaborate with the 3rd grade teachers, I mean, it was the best opportunity ever.
It is our pleasure to introduce you to the members of the Field and Pipkin Poetry Slam team. Those members include Courtney Becker, and please come forward as we call your name. Briddia Bradshaw, Brent Burton, Deb Fine, Jean Haynes, Julie Johnson, Melinda Little, Krista Spivey, Wesley Tim, Elizabeth Troutman, Julie Weinreis, and Barbara Wormington. Please come forward.
Coming your way with the morning. Doing this part first. We having our in the middle. Okay, no, student peeps. Okay.
At this time, we'd like to welcome Mrs. Marty Moore to the podium for our partner recognition.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to pull up a quick picture that I want you to see. The Springfield Symphony Orchestra has been an Any Given Child partner since 2014, providing every 4th grader in our system with the opportunity to attend a symphony performance each January. And you can see from the logo this year what an engaging opportunity it is and a little bit of a flavor of the program. You've also got an actual brochure at your table that talks about each of the programs. In addition, they send the Springfield Symphony string, bass, and percussion ensembles out to sites throughout the year to provide a deeper dive and more personal symphony experience to our students. In September of this year, though, we got a tremendous gift. Elizabeth Hurst, their development manager, reached out with an exciting opportunity for us to provide monthly tickets to students in our system via the Community Balcony program to expand additional students with accessibility to the arts and to engage those who might not have the opportunity but would benefit from that experience. And that is exactly what those tickets have done. Specifically for our middle school empowerment groups that you've heard a lot about, and class music groups that traditionally would not have access to the symphony. As you can see from this photo, taken at John Q. Hammond's, the students were highly engaged in this outing, and we are delighted that additional groups will be afforded this opportunity every single month this year. Tonight, we're honored to have our forward-thinking and generous benefactors in attendance, so we can honor them for this valuable contribution. In that vein, please welcome David Keene, the Vice President of the Symphony Board, and Elizabeth Hurst, their Development Manager. Please come forward. I'm also going to ask Brianna Kavanaugh to come forward. She's the one that actually schedules the buses and makes the logistics of this happen. So, yeah, help you in there. That's what we did. That is a lot of work. Another round of applause for their tremendous generosity.
Thank you to everyone who came this evening to celebrate so many people, and this is your opportunity to go do something else for the evening. I like to make that yes, there it goes.
You can stay.
We appreciate you being here, and you are welcome to stay.
There it is. I was waiting for
Can I
that.
go?
Go live.
Full sweat. Wow.
We'll be there till 9:30.
Thank you.
Oh, I wish I'd been here. Okay.
Jay-Z.
Taking the diehards remain.
I thought Jay was headed out.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the Tuesday, December 11th, 2018 Board of Education combined meeting agenda? So moved. Thank you, Alina. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charles. And let's all vote. Controversial vote of the evening. Okay, unanimous vote on that, and we'll move on. Are there any public comments to address agenda items? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Luton. Okay, and we'll go through 3, 4, and 5 consent agenda minutes on financial and personnel and consent agenda. Is there a motion that the board approve the consent agenda items 3.01 through 5.01?
So moved.
Thank you, Tim, and the second.
Second.
Thank you, Charles, and we'll vote. Unanimous vote, and we'll move on to the Treasurer's Report 6.01. Hello, Carol Embry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The standard reports have been posted for your review, and I'm happy to report, again, we continue with our stable ending fund balance projection of 17.08%. That's up slightly from 17.05% reported to you last month. And our budget amendments this month are very limited, just over $19,000 on both the expenditure and the revenue side. And part of that is a shift between funds as well. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions? I'm sure everyone's already done a review.
Yes.
May I have a motion that the board approve the Treasurer's Report as presented?
So moved.
Was that you, Charles?
It was.
Okay, Charles, and a second?
Second.
Tim? And we'll vote. What? I thought he presented it and seconded it. and that passes. And we next have information reports, and there are no information reports this evening. And there are no new policies to review. So we'll move on to 9, which is new business. Good evening, Dr. Dawson.
Good evening, Board of Education. Good evening. Tonight, administration brings forth a resolution for your consideration in support of the Seal of Biliteracy. And I want to tell you just a little bit about the seal so you know what you're expecting. But the seal is a DESA initiative, and I want to just kind of say, whoa, I'm not really sure about that, because Mr. Chris Moorhead in the back, please stand up. He has been the driving force behind the Seal of Biliteracy, not for Springfield Public Schools, but for the state of Missouri. He was the past president of the Foreign Language Association of Missouri. He's the one who has met with DESE. He's the one who's convinced them with other states that this is a good move for DESE and the state of Missouri. So without Chris, I don't know if we would be standing here today actually asking you for this support. Chris indicated to me today there are about 40 school districts in the state of Missouri who have passed this resolution and started to support the Seal of Biliteracy. It is recognizing graduating seniors who are proficient in English, another language other than English, and then show cultural competency. Currently, we have about 800 students we've identified as proficient in the English. That could be through our English 2 and, of course, exam, or it could be through access testing, which is for our English language learners. We've then identified a number of students who are in upper level AP and IB type world language courses. So we predict as a system right now, we think it'll be about 100 to 125 students that would be eligible for this seal on their transcript with the class of 2019. Those numbers will be more final in the spring when we see those scores. And I got to thank Ms. Kavanaugh, who's already been recognized tonight, but she has done all the internal logistics of making all of this program work, and it's been in the works for quite some time, but she was able to iron out everything and make it happen for us as a school district. So it's important because it's really preparing students for the 21st century in that global community. We believe it's perfect for employers to see this great skill that students can bring into the workforce. And it's also kind of leveling the playing field for universities to say, hey, this student has a unique skill set of being bilingual. They've proven it on another stage, and we are also honoring that with credit. So the last slide that I have for you tonight is just showing you the universities who have endorsed this Seal of Biliteracy, and they are awarding students 12 and 14 credit hours for presenting it as they start their university journey. So when you open up these letters of recommendation on the website, they always are addressed to Mr. Moorhead. So it's his enthusiasm, and I feel a little selfish standing here on his behalf, but it's truly his enthusiasm that has made this possible tonight. Any questions that I can help answer or support?
I have one. Is there a plan to make some sort of recognition at graduation in the program, or what's going to happen?
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet. We know it's not going to be a cord.
Oh, we need some bling.
It won't be a cord.
Chris,
That's
what
a
do you
whole
do?
other
We need some
process.
bling.
I'm sure that he would love to have a cord or bling, but right now it'd be a seal on the transcript. We haven't gotten that far into the recognition process and graduation.
It just seems to me it'd be great to have it in the program at the very least with an asterisk or a.
Chris has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a call in from the bank.
They do have a medal.
Oh, they have a medal. There is bling of it.
Bling.
I accept that as bling. Thank you.
And there is an actual seal that we can put on like a certificate or something with it as well.
There's apparently levels
getting
of recognition
better
that
all
can
the
happen
time.
for that, so yeah.
I mean, and I will, before somebody else says, I will note the glaring omission of one university, which will remain nameless.
I tried not to university shame, but I didn't
No,
want to be there.
there's more
Yeah,
than one
but-
missing.
But I think this is a terrific idea. I mean, as we live in a global community, and it sends a very powerful message, I think, about the world in which we live, the world in which we want to live, and certainly there are some higher education benefits there. And I would add, having asked Mike, that American Sign Language is included among the languages other than English, which I think is a terrific statement on multiple
Thank you for
levels.
mentioning that, I appreciate it.
Great. Just a quick question, and I understand the achievement, how they demonstrate achievement in English and another language, but social cultural competence.
Right.
How is that determined whether they
Our world,
achieve that?
eligible students will have to sit with the department head of the world language area and have conversation with those students if they participated in maybe some overseas travel, if they have done some sort of community service in a bilingual situation, or if they've translated in a bilingual. There's a variety of criteria that can kind of mix and match for that, and the student can tailor to it.
So it's somewhat subjective, but there are some.
There are some
I
criteria.
assumed it was. I was just
Yeah.
curious what that was.
Yeah. Good
It's a great
question.
idea.
Okay.
Anyone else? Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion that the board approve the resolution to add a seal of biliteracy award to the transcript of graduating seniors who've demonstrated proficiency in English, a language other than English, and cultural competency?
So moved.
Charles, and a second.
Second.
Jerry, thank you, and we'll vote. And that passes. Excellent, that's great. And we're going to move on to unfinished business. And I know he'll probably want to come up to talk about the school calendar again, but keep your seat, sir. Okay, so as you all remember, Dr. Jay Anderson presented the proposed calendar already at our November 27th study session. So now it is time to have a motion that the Board of Education approve the calendar for school year 2019-2020 as presented.
Public hearing took place tonight as required by law, and this has been modified to make sure it meets the statutory changes that passed last year. So it's ready for your approval.
Move for adoption.
Thank you, Tim, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Charles, and we'll vote. And that passes. We'll move on to section 11, public comments to address non-agenda items, and I do have a few people who've come forward to speak on that this evening. So I'll begin by saying that the Board of Education will allow comments on topics not related to the printed agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes for each speaker and will be timed by the board secretary. It is inappropriate to address the board about individual students or individual staff members by name in open meeting. If you have concerns about individuals, these concerns should be addressed through the appropriate administrative supervisors, either in the schools or in the district office. If you have materials that you wish to share, please provide them to the board secretary and she will distribute them to the board members. We'll begin with Bob Monday. Thank you for being here, Dr. Moorhead and friends. We really appreciate it.
It would be really nice if we could start having coffee out here too. If somebody would bring up a bill about that.
Put that on the plus stuff.
I want to share out of the second chapter of Luke again because our nation's in a real mess right now because of secular humanism and the teaching of socialism. And we need to get back to the basics, which for maybe 150 years or so was the Bible. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, and all went to be taxed, every one into his own city. And Joseph also went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth into Judea, unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David, to be taxed with Mary his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn. And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flocks by night. And lo, the angel of the Lord came upon them, and the glory of the Lord shone round about them, and they were sore afraid. And the angel said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, which is Christ the Lord. And this shall be a sign unto you. Ye shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of the heavenly host, praising God and saying, Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill towards men. I do believe we've got the best school system in America, right here in Springfield. Working with veterans as an ordained minister for 25 years, and owning the Ozarks Jubilee, which had a lot of history here, I've seen a lot. 2 Marines took their lives in 1 month in Springfield, Missouri. If they don't have the foundation, they don't have hope. Remember, Merry Christmas. The Christ of Christmas loves these young people as much or more than you do. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monday. Becky Bowles. Hello, Ms. Bowles. Welcome.
Good evening, distinguished and dedicated school board. Tonight, I just want to thank you again from the Community Task Force position of being a member of that. I want to thank you for establishing that and giving the public an opportunity to weigh in and work together to create that. It was an honor for me to experience that. And going forward, I'm looking forward to community conversations. And I believe that these will be critical to address concerns on the recommendations that were made. I hear concerns from different parts of town and parents and citizens as well. We have those from the task force who will speak to the data and the building scores, and they're ready to communicate and share what they learned on that. I'm usually the one that highlights the emotional side of the changes, the ones who don't take away my school, or what are you really doing to my school? And equity seems to be at the top of that list. So we've all heard that, we've experienced different information about the equity, but equity in our buildings, equity in the opportunities that the students have in their buildings. But I think what is set forth right now in phase 1 is really a good start for us. I'm excited about that. I'm always wanting to find more money to do more. But I also just want to let you know that wearing my PTA hat, that our legislative chair, Donna Pettiford, is working on the resolution, which is part of our protocol as an organization to get involved in the support of something going to the polls for the voters. And we should be having that ready for you in January. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for getting this ball rolling and for giving us an opportunity to have something I feel that will be successful in April. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Aaron Brummett. Good evening, Mr. Brummett.
Good evening. Well, I'm just going to be kind of speaking to you as we do, I guess, once a year we come in and speak to you about the historicity of Jesus Christ. And I want to just start out here with a couple quotes. First one is going to be a quote from several professors that were computer scientists. Professor Stephen Skyen of Stony Brook University in New York and Charles Ward used quantitative analysis to decide who the most significant people were in world history. They studied thousands of historical figures to determine which person's opinions had the most impact on world affairs. Using an algorithm similar to Google's ranking system and other data sources, they ranked the various historical figures by importance, as referenced in the English version of Wikipedia. The analysis concluded that Jesus Christ was the most influential person. Wikipedia, which we know is not necessarily always the most reliable source, but their statement about Jesus Christ, it says, as you start reading through that particular source, it says, virtually all modern scholars of antiquity agree that Jesus existed historically. So if he is the most influential person in history, and he is a historical figure, the question I would ask is, why is it that we do not cover him in great extent in the school curriculum, even objectively, not as a religious topic, but just the historical person of Jesus? A few other quotes here I'll give you. The famous Annuals of Rome, which are written by the famous Roman historian Cornelius Tacitus. He wrote the Annuals covering a period from Augustus Caesar, his death in AD 14, to the death of Emperor Nero in AD 68. This is a first century source. And he writes, and he never became a Christian. He was an unbiased source. He had no connection with Christianity specifically. And he writes and says, Christus, or Christ, the founder of the name, was put to death by Pontius Pilate, procurator of Judea, in the reign of Tiberius. So that's a important first century source we can look at, as well as Josephus. Now this would be a little more biased. He was a Jewish historian who wrote from 37 to 100 AD. And he writes and says, now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ, and then Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men among us, had condemned him to the cross. And so as I close with the last 16 seconds, I would just ask, if he is the most influential figure in history, and is a historical figure, why is he not being taught extensively to our children? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Brummett. Okay, that concludes our public comments. We'll move on to section 12, the strategic discussion. And we'll invite Ms. Penny Richter up, because she is going to introduce a couple of different leaders who are going to participate in this discussion this evening. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it is. Thank you and good evening. We appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to provide you with an update or a year-end review of Focus Area 2 Goal 1. And we have a team of leaders here with us this evening who have contributed to both the report and the presentation this evening, as well as day-to-day committing effort and time and energy, they and their staff, to supporting the work in this area. So I want to thank them first for being part of this process and committing to ensuring that we do have effective and empowered staff to support our students. So as a quick review, we have already heard throughout the fall Focus Area 1 year-end update, and tonight we're going to be looking at Focus Area 2, empowered and effective teachers, leaders, and support personnel. And we will be providing a review of 17-18 data and information for you. And in Focus Area 2, we're looking at Goal 1, which is creating a culture that empowers employees and provides each student with access to qualified and effective teachers in every classroom, effective principals in every school, and effective employees in every position throughout the district. We have 11 strategies that we'll be providing a summary or overview of tonight. We will not go in depth into each of those. We're going to highlight just a few of the initiatives that we've undertaken this last year, and the report has much more information for you, and we'd be glad to review that with you individually if you have questions or comments or thoughts. But first this evening, we will invite Dr. Nicole Holt to come forward and share with us regarding strategy 2.11.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about professional learning and the opportunities that are provided to our certified staff as well as our new teachers. So the first strategy 2.11 really speaks specifically to new teacher and leader supports. So I think important context for you is what we define new teachers as. And so when you think about that, it's those teachers that are new to the profession. It's teachers that are new to our system. It's leaders that are new to their roles and leaders that are new to our system. So that just gives you a little context around what you're going to hear a little bit more about tonight. So the two facets of this support have to do with step-up coaching and evolving leaders. So the step-up side is really the support we provide to our year 1 and year 2 teachers, and then evolving leaders is the programming that we provide to leaders that are either new to SPS or new to their role within SPS. So the first process measure that we're looking at closely is step-up coaching and classroom visit support. So the table that you see here has to do with the hours of support that are provided to teachers in year 1 and 2, and then a totaling of those hours in the final column. So what we want you to really know about this has to do with while teachers are provided that learning in years 1 and 2, and we have a systematic approach to that, we really believe that the driver is coaching. That bridges the gap from the learning knowledge that they're gaining and puts it into practice in the classroom. So that's the important piece there. They work with teachers individually, and that provides that layer of job-embedded support that we see that accelerates teachers. The next piece of data is a 3-year trend of perceptual and retention data related to step-up coaching. So what you'll notice there is that while 3 years are representative, if you think about that data holistically, we really do span about that 83 to 95% favorability across the support we provide related to impact and then benefit. And I think a notable metric there is related to their growing confidence as an educator. We see that consistently being high, and we know that that collective efficacy piece goes a long way to driving change across the building. So there's some data there. The next piece of data has to do with evolving leaders. This is that programming that's specific to leaders that are new to SPS or might have served in SPS but are now in a leadership role. And so you have the same 3-year trend data there represented with related to retention and then perceptual data. So the pieces to these that I might remind you of is that these leaders are onboarded in a 1-day induction prior to the start of the school year, but then they have quarterly learning opportunities and collaboration. We do also include mentorship and coaching opportunities for these leaders as well throughout both years 1 and year 2 of that programming. We did make some adjustments this year to programming to better provide some differentiation around uniqueness of roles, so department leader versus building leaders, and we know that those learning opportunities should look different, and we hope that some of those adjustments might move some of these metrics in a positive light.
We have a question.
Yeah.
So you might have just said this, and I apologize. So,
Nope.
So the step-up coaching, the evolving leaders, process measures, are those the only 4 process measures that you have for step-up? Or are those the only 4 you're sharing with us?
Correct.
Okay.
So the data is far more expansive than this. These are just the highlight pieces that we pulled out. But yes, I'd be happy to share the holistic pieces of those data if you want that information.
It looks, in the step-up coaching, the retention, et cetera, kind of clustered a lot more tightly, but it moves from just over 2/3 all the way to 100%. Can you identify particular things that happened in that 2-year period that led to that, or is it just is that a data point rather than a trend, do you think?
Yeah, so one thing that, and I would just tell you, I'm just digging into this data being new to the role, but one thing that I can tell you is that this N varies a little bit more than our other pieces of data. While we know we onboard close to 200 new teachers almost every year, that gives us a good N almost every year for that, but the evolving leader piece can change pretty drastically. So like 17, 18, we had 34 that we served in year 1 and 2, but then the year before that it was 43, and the year before that it was 37. So I think that your percent favorably can vary greatly based on that.
Sure.
Versus like a more consistent number with step up.
Does
that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
I'd say that's fairly good. I'm just getting into the data answer.
Well,
since you rolled the numbers off without looking down.
Thank you.
Just saying, we noticed.
And I think I'm turning it to Dr. Cooper for this next piece.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So I get the opportunity to share how we're partnering with local universities and also recruiting individuals so that we have the most highly qualified applicants for our positions. So I'm going to share how we partner with local universities to implement opportunities for pre-service teachers that help them to become more engaged in SPS and prepare them for classrooms. So this past year, and even into this year, HR leaders, including myself, have met with MSU, Evangel, Jury, and OTC education departments to really reflect on what's working, what's not working. So how are our practicum student placements going, our student teachers, what's working well, what can we do better to plug in their students from those universities so that they can fully experience SPS and hopefully invite them to partake in the practicum students and student teaching experiences with SPS so that they will be well acquainted at SPS and then hopefully have a very high interest in wanting to join our team when they graduate. In addition, when we're meeting, I also speak about how we can plug them into other opportunities such as how they become a PINMAC substitute, so we can increase that rate as well and get them into different schools, so just to experience different cultures, but then also how we can plug them into Club Encore, which is our after-school enrichment program, Explore during the summer months, so just different ways they can plug in besides just waiting until they graduate from college. In addition, because of that, we do have hundreds of practicum placements every single year, as well as student teaching. Furthermore, we have lots of unique partnerships, if you will, with the universities, so I'm going to highlight just a few of those. The first one I would like to highlight is 3 years ago now, MSU reached out to Wanda Gray to have a year-long internship, if you will. And so those student teachers are student teachers for a full year at Wanda Gray, which seems to be extremely successful and has proven to better prepare them for when they do accept a teaching position to be more successful during that first year. Just reflecting back, I know last year we had 3 long-term intern placements at Wanda Gray, and all 3 were hired within SPS, which is wonderful. This year we have 4 placements, so that's great.
Can I
So
ask
we're-
a question?
Absolutely.
Just because I'm trying to wrap my mind around this, and I have a little bit of familiarity
Yeah.
with those internships. Would it be more normal that you get placed in more than one setting, and what's different about this is you're doing your whole internship at one building? Is that the difference I'm looking at here?
Every university is a little different. It also depends on what strand they're in, if they're special ed or if they're elementary or secondary. And DESE did change the regulations this past year to make sure that every student teacher is getting a unique experience so that they are serving in a higher demographics of poverty, if you will. So they're not just placed in a low economic or a high economic, that they have a well balanced of experiences. But to answer your question, during this intern, yes, they're at Wanda Gray all year long, but they would have had practicum students in more diverse areas for the Wanda Gray one.
And the typical student would just be a semester student
Yeah.
teaching experience.
That's what I
So-
figured.
So this is expanding their
Right, to be a
embedded
year long at Wanda
experience.
Gray.
So it's not just that they're just doing it at one place, they're also doing it longer than they would normally do.
They get experience at the beginning of the year, the end of the year, if you think of all the different transitions that teachers experience with kids and how you're limited if you just have a spring student teaching or a fall student teaching experience.
And I am collaborating with a particular university right now who's looking at a special ed long-term placement, if you will. And with that, they're looking at having them have experience at an elementary school as well as a middle school or high school to expand those opportunities. So I would say it depends on the university and then which strand they're in, on what kind of experience they have.
Okay.
Is there a kind of a unique profile of the students who would seek that out if student teaching one semester is required? What's the draw beyond a deeper dive to those students? I mean, are they the sort of A-plus overachievers, or they just, for whatever reason, what's the payoff for them?
I know, well, the payoff really is because they get more embedded professional learning. So when you're with a cooperating teacher all year long, they truly get to experience what it's like to be a teacher from beginning to end. So these particular students get to be with their cooperating teacher before the school year starts. So how to plan for the first day of school, setting up those classroom norms, if you will, all the way to the end of the school year, and also being able to monitor their academic achievements. So, how do you assess where they're at? How do you provide differentiated instruction? So they truly get almost like a first-year teaching experience while they're student teaching. And what's even better is that it's really a win-win for our students, because a lot of times we do that co-teaching model to where it's not where the cooperating teacher leaves the room and just gives it full reign to the student teacher, but they're actually dividing and conquering, if you will, so that they can really provide more support to their students, which is just huge for us and our kiddos.
So you're saying, I'm sorry.
No.
So that MSU internship program at Wanda Gray is new?
This is our third year.
Third year.
Mhm.
Okay, but it's the only place where you could get a full year's worth of.
With MSU
With
currently, yes.
So how many? I'm just curious if that's a new model or a new.
It's not really a new model. And I will tell you, MSU kind of is modeling that at Jarrett as well, except it's a semester-long practicum placement, and then they're carrying over at Jarrett as well in the spring for student teaching. So it's almost a year-long placement as well. So that has happened at Reed and Jarrett this year. They're taking on a similar model, except it's practicum for a semester, and then student teaching in the spring. The tricky part for some of our students is that when they do apply to be a part of a year-long student teaching experience, many times they have to give up working outside of school because they just can't financially afford to be at site in our schools all day long, Monday through Friday, because then they can't work. So a lot of student teachers work.
If you were gonna tell us how many students, you don't have to have an exact number, because Wanda Gray's gone on the longest, that's 3 years.
Correct.
How many student teachers is that? Or how many people are participating in that year-long program?
Well, at Wanda Gray, it was 3 last year, 4 the year prior. I believe it was 4 the year prior, and it was 4 this year. But they also have the year-long internship and a couple of surrounding districts. So we're really hoping by collaborating with these colleges, we can recruit more internship opportunities. But right now, Wanda Gray was the only one selected by MSU.
There are some states that are requiring, or at least strongly recommending, the full year immersion
Yes.
student teaching experience.
What incentive would it be in our district, whether it's, you get, I don't know if it's word credit, but what would incentivize someone, and where would they start if we were to hire someone?
So we're going to honor 1 year, 1 step on the teaching pay scale. So
there
if they
it
were to
is.
be hired as
Yeah.
a first-year teacher, they would start on step 2. They have no other prior teaching experience, which they wouldn't, instead of step 1.
For those who have gone through a year's worth of.
Year-long student teaching placement with Springfield Public Schools. Yes. So that's an incentive,
Because it
right?
is their second year.
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
there it is. Well, we got to it.
Okay, that as well. So we have other highlights that I would like to share with you. At Jarrett Middle School, there's a middle school education semester class that's meeting there every Wednesday for 2 hours. And it's really wonderful because those students not only meet there to have class, but then they also go out into Jarrett Middle School and observe teachers, leaders, students. Are able to have conversations with them about being a middle school teacher, or what it's like to be a middle school student, and really just being a part of that culture, which Mr. Kroll would say has been a huge success. And because of that, they've started the year-long placements at Reed and Jarrett because those MSU education class students were so excited about it. So they've now done kind of a similar model to where they're doing the practicum placement first semester, and then they're going right into their student teaching placement in the spring. So we have 5, I believe, at Reed and 5 at Jarrett this year, which they're pretty stoked about. In addition to that, another benefit to us is those students are excited to already partake in other opportunities. So this year, we already have one of those year-long internships at Jarrett as our assistant volleyball coach, and another one as an assistant speech and debate coach. So we're trying to see what opportunities we can plug them into, and then hopefully they will become a permanent part of our staff as well. Also at Evangel, they have really taken Weller under their wing. I'm not sure if you know about it. They have a lot of things going on. They have teaching with reading difficulties class. So that class meets at Weller twice a week from 8 to 9:30. For the first hour, they learn all about different reading interventions for students who struggle in reading. And then they partner up and provide one-on-one reading interventions with students that have been identified by Weller staff. And that's under the supervision of the principal and the supervisor of Evangel.
And how many roughly are participating in that?
Ooh. I'm not sure. But I want to say, I might have it in my notes. You think there's 16?
There you go, she knows.
16, thank you, Rebecca. 16 this semester. All right, fantastic. I should have you take the stand and tell you all about Weller.
That sounds like a great program.
Right? I'm going to sing her sing her praises over here. They also have Evangel's business department come out and meet with the Weller Garden Club, and they teach them Biz Kids curriculum. It's kind of an entrepreneurship where they learn how to grow tomatoes and peppers and then turn around and sell them. So they get to that whole economic part of having a garden. They also have their Evangel football team come out every Thursday to meet with second grade students during a lunch and read. So every Thursday they come out and have lunch with the second grade students as well as read to them, and so that's pretty cool for the students to partner with those football players. And of course, it's under the direction of the coach who comes with them and the Weller staff. In addition, they have the half-hour hero program, which is really neat, and that is during recess. Students come out in groups of 6 from Evangel. 85 students total from Evangel come throughout the year during 3rd through 5th grade recess, and they interact with the students and try to teach them soft skills, because we've noticed a lot of our students are not having those soft skills that they need to be productive citizens, if you will, on how they treat one another and collaborate and just communicate and learn skills that you need to have in life.
Can I just say something?
Absolutely.
85 a week, and they were solid all semester. It's really a cool program. So.
On the soft skill one, are you talking about?
Yeah,
Okay.
18 half-hour heroes come every day and do recess with each 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade level. It's really cool.
That's nice.
I know also know they provide them sweatshirts, and then they come out and sing the national anthem at a game as well. So very cool that Evangel's partners so strongly with Weller. In addition, of course, we have our Fall Student Teacher Celebration as well as Teach SPS, which kind of serves as twofold. One, to celebrate our Fall Student Teachers. We just had it last week, but also during those events, we provide different opportunities to connect with SPS groups to show them all about SPS and why they should join SPS versus maybe another surrounding district. So what we have to offer through curriculum, Club Encore, Explore, Ignite, Blended Learning, just everything they would want to know and more to entice them to apply for SPS, and also thank them for serving as student teachers in our district. So it's twofold.
Can I ask a question? I can
Absolutely.
see it's pretty clear the benefits for the student teachers. How do you assess the perception of the supervising teacher? Because, I mean, in some ways, you've got somebody in your space, right? And you're helping them learn to mature into a really good teacher, but they're still in your space. So do the cooperating teachers, do you assess them and and their perceptions of how this is all working?
Well, we do take a lot of time to determine who will have student teacher placements, if you will. So it's definitely something that the cooperating teacher would want, and there's conversations throughout the whole semester to make sure it's going well, and if not, there's intervention done through the university or the site to make sure that it is a positive experience. But I also, at the end of every semester, provide a questionnaire to the cooperating teachers and also the leaders of the building to to make me aware of how the student teacher placement went, and also if they're a great candidate that we should be keeping our eye on to kind of vet them through the applications. All right, so my next slide is just to give you an idea of student placement hires for the last 2 years. So during 2016-2017, we placed approximately 188 student teachers between fall and spring. This past year, we placed 165, 70 were in the fall, 95 were in the spring. Out of those placements, we did hire 41 this past year. We figured that is a huge success. Any other questions before I hand it over to? I think
Thank
Nicole
you.
is coming right back up.
Come on back, Nicole. Where'd you go?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello again. So the next strategy has to do specifically with onboarding. So this is how we introduce people to SPS. So the two facets to this we'll talk about are our induction days and the variety of support we provide via different departments. And then we'll talk a little bit more specifically about new teacher liaisons, which are those mentor teachers that are assigned to really help new teachers and those new to SPS acclimate to a building and site culture. So this just gives you an at-a-glance of how we systematically include both district-level professional learning and then access to connection with all new colleagues to SPS within that same cohort year, and then give an opportunity for teachers to have site-level professional learning via this new teacher liaison at each site, and then also honor and give them the opportunity for professional work within those first 4 days of induction that occur prior to the start of the contract year. So that's just an at-a-glance of that. The next table really spells out how we include all levels of leadership and department involvement in the induction process. One of the goals of that is to make sure that we provide the connection piece, the cohesion piece that showcases that our district is here to support our newest hires from a variety of avenues. And so this gives you a breakdown of their days. So we offer several opportunities for day 1, and those are the departments that are included. And then day 2s and 3, we give them more access to executive leadership all the way down to their personalized department that supports them. And then really taking it back to, okay, here's what you need to know about what's occurring at your site that you may not have heard at some of those other learning opportunities. And then the last piece really gives you a little bit more information around this idea of job-embedded support at the building level. So we realize that there are other items of information that new teachers and those new to the system need access to, but they're going to have to be personalized to where they're serving our students at. And so this gives them an opportunity to orient to their own building. It gives them a chance to set expectations from the site level that may look a little bit different than what they heard at the district level. So this gives you those hours of formal support that are provided to new teachers via the new teacher liaison. And then I'm turning it back over to Penny.
Thank you. So we're going to look very quickly at 2.1.4, which really looks at ensuring that we have sufficient numbers of qualified candidates to fill the positions that we have open in any given school year. And 3 strategies or initiatives that we've utilized in the district are the early retirement incentive, our early hiring incentive, which those 2 are directly linked, and employee retention efforts. And as we jump into that, one thing that is not reflected in your slides but is in your materials is for teaching positions in 17-18, we had 2,995 applications from 1,276 people to fill 156 externally hired positions. And then we also had internal transfers and internal hires where paraprofessionals may have moved into teaching positions. There were 195 of those, but with relatively few of those being hired into teaching positions. And so approximately 165 total positions hired out of that 1,276 people that were available. So a very robust pool as far as numbers. And in ensuring that that pool is robust, one of the factors is really understanding what our need is so that we can advertise early and we can hire early. And so we need to know very early on who will be resigning or retiring from the district. And so 17-18 was our 3rd year for the early notice incentive, early notice of retirement or resignation. And as you can see from the data, that program continues to be a very robust program for us. We had 90 teachers and 6 administrators who provided notice to us early in that process. 71 of those were in January, and so we knew in January that we were going to have at least 71 openings, which allows us to get, we believe, a little bit ahead of the ball as we plan and proceed with our early hiring efforts, which is the next measure that we're going to take a very quick look at. So our early hiring efforts began after looking at FY 2016, where you see that we hired no employees in that January to March timeframe, and the majority, 57%, were hired in July and August, when the pool is more shallow, because the pool is going to be much more robust, and more people available early in the year. And so as you can see, you see that trend across time. We have increased our efforts in that early hiring area. For FY19, the hiring that we did in 17-18, 75%, we reached 75% of our hires in that January to June through June timeframe. Now, last year, when I stood here in front of you, I told you that our goal was 80%. We made it to 75 from our 61% the year prior. Good progress, but we are going to continue with those efforts. And long-term, we're going to try and move that timeline back to maybe May 30th and continue to push it earlier, so that we are in the marketplace competing for talent when the talent pool is at its height, at its peak, as far as numbers of qualified candidates. And a very important piece of that is ensuring that we have strong retention of employees as well. And so we always want to look at where we are with our retention. You'll see certified staff, we remain very consistent at a 90% retention rate over time. And classified, we have taken a dip. And so we are just shy of 83.5%. And so we're going to spend some time analyzing why that is, the areas where we've seen the most impacted by that attrition are nutrition services, transportation, and paraprofessionals. And so we're going to spend some time looking in those classifications to see if we can identify the factors that are influencing that attrition. Because we know that if we can retain employees who have experience, who know our kids, we will see better outcomes.
Penny, can you?
Yes.
Go back, okay, so identify classified again.
So we have certified teaching and certified administrators. Classified are all of our support and other individuals who are not on the certified side. So.
Is that nurses?
Yes.
Food service?
Yes, who are not on that teacher salary schedule essentially, yes. Transportation, maintenance, custodial, food service, those classifications.
Would you
primarily.
speculate that the job economy probably plays a part?
We would be speculating, but yes, if you look at the data, the trend would indicate that when the economy's better, you have more individuals who are looking for that next better opportunity, and so you'll see some shifts. Particularly if we have employees who are not working 12 months, and they can find employment in a position that is 12 months, that can have an impact on their decision to make that shift. We also see employees who leave and decide that they want to return, and so we'll see that door as well, but that is likely a factor in that
Communities
process.
almost in a full employment situation with
Right.
unemployment so low, so the market becomes much more competitive
It does.
for positions that aren't in the certificated kind of isolated,
Yeah. Yeah.
contracted positions.
And so at this time, I will turn it over to Marty Moore.
Thank you.
So I recently had opportunity when we did Focus Area 1, Goal 2, to really go in deep and talk to you about the hours of professional development, just to refresh your memory. 30 hours annually with our champions, 26 hours with leadership, and 91% of them felt like the training that was provided to them was relevant and improved their job skill. So thankful to you for approving those champions in each school. We're entering our second year. And so what was really important to us as we move forward was that we were able to have a framework for those champions to function out of as they did their work in the 54 sites. What you want is appropriate, relevant input on those diverse and culturally relevant pieces, but it needs to be customized for grade level and for audience. So we took our leadership team to a series of site visits and investigated the teaching tolerance framework, and ultimately decided that the teaching tolerance anti-bias framework provided us the biggest bang for the buck for a K-12 and actually pre-K-12 system to make sure that we were all on the same page with the work that we were doing. What we like about this framework is it starts with knowing who you are. You begin with your identity and understanding your cultural interaction and how you see the world, and how the way you see the world intersects with the way others see the world. And what we find is when we start people with knowing themselves, that opens up the perspective of seeing how another sees differently. So we're very purposeful. What we also like about these 4 domains is that they can be applied at any grade level. There is specific standards and objectives for K2, 3-5, 6-8, 9-12, and for leaders in the system. So everybody gets a piece of it,
but they get the piece that is developmentally appropriate for their age span and for their duties. So what will happen over the course of this coming year is that we'll be moving people through some common language, some common understanding that begins with their identity, who they are, understanding and acknowledging diversity, connecting with people who are not like them, and understanding that how people have been historically treated frames their view, moving into understanding that when people are unfairly treated, it's my responsibility to do something, and ultimately moving them to action to do the right thing, whatever situation they're faced with. What we like about this is that it incorporates all the different dimensions of diversity. It's not solely focused on race. And at its core, it aligns really well with the curriculum that the counseling groups are pushing out with anti-bullying and with mental health. So there's coherence in the system, and we'll move together in a way that makes really good sense. There are critical practices, so for at each level, there are instructional components, there are classroom cultural components, there's community engagement components, and leadership components. So we're not doing this in isolation as a school, we're doing it with the community. So as we make those next steps in involving and forming work groups to give us more specific information, this framework will give us a structure to guide those conversations, and we're very excited about that. Any questions that you have before I turn it back over?
Questions?
Again, thank you for making those champions a part of the landscape. They are invaluable.
Thank you.
Right way. So next, we're going to take a very quick look at the teacher evaluation process specifically as we look at 2.1.6, ensuring high-quality staff through effective evaluation. Tonight, we're going to just take a very, very quick dive into the teacher evaluation process and look at administrative evaluations as well. I will say that we do a good job of providing feedback across all segments of the district to employees. Our evaluation systems are most robust with our teaching staff and our certified administrative staff. And we do have some work to do when it comes to our classified staff to ensure that we have consistency in how we're evaluating and providing that feedback. And I think our teaching model is a very good model for us to utilize as we develop out further our systems for other classifications of employees. All teachers in the district are expected to have a professional growth plan in place that's developed early in the school year with the teacher and the administrator identifying areas of growth opportunity. Teachers interested in growing in a particular area, administrator may have some suggestions on some growth areas. Develop that professional growth plan, have check-in points throughout the year, and then at the end of the year have a conversation about how that growth developed and whether they met the goals that they were seeking to meet throughout that year. In addition, teachers are expected to be evaluated on an ongoing basis, which means there's going to be regular feedback provided, and we call some of this data points. And so if I'm a teacher in my first 2 years with SPS, I'm going to have not only my professional growth plan, but at least 8 opportunities to have some interaction with my leader where that data is collected on my performance, as well as my summative evaluation, kind of the culminating evaluation at the end of that year. A probationary 3 to 5 years has 5 data points in that summative. A tenured teacher who's being evaluated every 3rd year, 4 of those data points in a summative. And then those teachers who are not on cycle for that full summative evaluation have at least 2 data points, so 2 points of interaction, and it's much more frequent than that. Leaders are in the classrooms regularly providing feedback, but 2 formal points that are noted in our evaluation system and conversations are had. And then for those tenured teachers who transfer from one building to another, that first year they're going to have at least 4 opportunities to have feedback with their leader as well as a summative, and then they return to that regular evaluation cycle.
Can you remind us, is this the same as last year?
Yes, the processes are all the same. Yes, well, there's not been any change. We just wanted to provide you with some data on numbers of not only what the process looks like, but what those numbers look like for teachers in those processes.
Yes, that makes complete sense. I just didn't know if it had changed from last year or if it's, essentially been the same.
It is the same. Since the state altered the way in which evaluations are to be conducted, and that's been about 4 years ago, I think, then we have developed our process, which is much more robust than many districts in the state. So I can speak from experience and say that it was 2 to 4 data points instead of 8 for a first-year teacher. And so I think this opportunity to have consistent, ongoing feedback is really important to for the growth and development of new teachers. So I applaud you and the district for being so forward-thinking and developing that process.
Sorry, you may have mentioned this. Again, what is the data point?
Data point is so my observation and interaction. It may be a walkthrough. I may be conducting a walkthrough. It may be a team meeting that I've seen some observable behavior around collaboration, and I want to record that in the evaluation system. So
A classroom visit or an observation, you're now calling that a data point.
that would be a data point.
So are any of those planned so the teacher knows the eval, that's when whoever's coming in? Or are they just surprised? How does that work?
So most
Thinking back
frequently,
in my day, how did that work?
yeah, historically you had so many planned, you may have had 1 planned and 1 unplanned, and there may have been 2 expected throughout the year. Most of these are drop-in unplanned, but you may have a few that are particularly scheduled with a teacher, depending, you may want to see a particular lesson or see a particular project in action, and you may arrange that. But the bulk will be unplanned.
So is the 8 data points the same for every teacher?
Probationary teacher, years 1 and 2. No, no, they're not the same.
There's a list of data points that could be used.
So there are 36 indicators in the teacher evaluation system, and so it may be reflective of any of those 36.
Gotcha.
Often those data points will be aligned with my growth areas where I'm interested in growing, or you may say that I need to grow a bit in an area, and some of those data points may be particularly aligned with that.
But the point is, they're not all the same for all the first or second.
They are not.
Which is the point he's
They are
making.
not.
Targeted for
They're individualized.
Thank you.
And so in 17-18, we had 833 summatives completed for those teachers 1 through 5 on the probationary scale, and then those tenure teachers who were on cycle for evaluation. And 93% of those were deemed effective or higher. And so we had 7% that were then in that developing or needs improvement area. And if I did my calculations correctly, that ineffective needs improvement or emerging is about 16 teachers in that process who were provided some additional support, some feedback on opportunities to grow, perhaps some remedial efforts as well. Yes?
How would a teacher, for example, and this is finals week for us, so this is at top of consciousness. Let's say we've got somebody who is right there on the borderline between the brown and the blue, between effective, proficient, and highly effective. By gosh, I'm highly effective. But his or her rating is just below that. What response would that teacher be able to make?
Well, the teacher, so in that summative process, the teacher is given the opportunity to provide feedback, and that can alter the findings. If you're convincing, you provide data point to show that difference. But certainly the response is logged and maintained as part of that evaluation process.
Good, thanks.
And our numbers look very, very similarly when we look at our administrators who had summative evaluations in 17-18. 69 administrators and 94% were in that proficient or higher. And so we had 6% that were deemed to be developing, and then that provides some assistance for leaders to help identify opportunities for growth as well.
And I don't think you mentioned this, but I just wondered, as far as administrators, how many data points for administrators? So, in other words, how many observations, visits, whatever, did they receive for their evaluation?
So I am not aware of a specified number that is required for administrators. I think it's based upon need and the executive leader working with that team and assessing what would be appropriate for that level.
So if you're a first-year administrator, you may or may not have more visits.
You will certainly have more, young, newer.
The main supervisors would be Jay and Shane of the majority of our leaders, and they have tower input, feedback, data points. I think on average, they're going to be at least at the 5 to 8 per year per leader. Does that sound accurate, Jay?
At this point this year, I think my average elementary principal has 6 data points to this point.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine some are a little lower at 3 or 4, some are higher at.
Right.
So you try to keep it
Comparable.
aligned to teachers.
Comparable.
The newer they are, the more complete.
Because I know that wasn't listed, but I think that's a good.
That's a good-
How
good
are you
point.
finding administrators?
So
in this context?
these are our building leaders.
I mean, while one size fits all is never a good approach, would there be virtue in systematizing the number of data points or points of interaction? It doesn't seem to be equal in some ways. And maybe more systematic, it may not be appropriate in the same kind of way for a building level leader, but I could imagine some virtue in being a little more systematic about it. Says somebody who has no idea
Yeah,
what it's like
typically
inside a
the
building.
expectations, data points are higher for the leadership feedback number. So
Yeah.
I don't know that we'd want to reduce it down and make it.
Oh, no,
level
I don't
with
think
the
so either.
teachers,
Yeah.
But setting
Yeah.
a consistent expectation for years of service and those things, just like we have in the teacher schedule, is
Yeah.
worthy of review.
So we can gather and get that information about the numbers of data points just to better inform, and I apologize that we don't have those for you this evening.
You're welcome, Jay. You're welcome, Jay.
Okay, and next up, we have
Nicole,
Dr.
part
Nicole
3.
Holt again.
Back for
Are you
Chapter
tired of
3.
seeing my face yet? Yeah, right. So this strategy is specific to professional learning, and I think probably even more specific to the design, how we determine what is relevant and personal for each of our teachers in this system. So the initiatives that we are going to discuss tonight are related to the needs assessment, which is the feedback tool that we garner from teachers annually around their professional learning that's both site-based and district. We're going to share a little bit with you about Activate SPS, which is really a collaboration between professional learning, blended learning, and our curriculum teams. And then in your paper, but not a topic for tonight's conversation, are Master Learner and Blended Learning Mentors, which is programming specific to increasing and building capacity in teachers, leaders across the system to help drive professional learning. And then site-based professional learning systems, which is what really helps shape our school action plans. So the first piece of data here is related to the needs assessment. Again, that tool is about garnering feedback around professional learning, both at the district level and at the site level. It also speaks and really helps us shape and prioritize learning needs across the system. And this is the mechanism for really gaining teacher voice around how we design professional learning for the system. So you can see here that the data is pretty good with relationship to the belief in professional learning. So that gets at the teacher mindset piece, but also related to their learning and changing practice both from district level and site level, and then obviously the connection back to student achievement. So that's the 3-year trend there. And then for the Activate piece, I'm going to invite Dr. Allison Tilley up to share a little bit of her information around that.
Hello, Allison.
Hello, thank you for having me. Activate SPS is an event that occurs twice a year. Once the very first day back, whenever teachers come back in August. This year, that event was a full day event. And then we follow that up in November with another event that's a half day. Teachers are asked to select their sessions. For the most part, we do have some required sessions, but this is the only event that is required for all teachers and administrators. We put just a couple of the survey questions up here for you to see, but if you look in the executive summary, then there are more details about it, such as the number of sessions that we offer. At the elementary level, we're offering about 60 sessions every single time. And at the secondary level, we offer 80 sessions. And that's so that if you are a science teacher or a math teacher or a special ed teacher, you have sessions that pertain to your job and meet your needs where you are. So we obviously want a higher percentage of teachers to feel like this is a good use of their time. So we continue to meet and gather additional feedback from stakeholders and try to design the learning around what their needs are so that we can continue to improve that number.
I mean, while I applaud your desire to have those numbers higher, somebody who's done a lot of faculty workshops I'd settle for that.
Thank
Frankly,
you for saying that.
7.1% would be a good deal for university faculty.
He's really personalizing his remarks tonight.
Yeah.
Anyone else noticed? It's the end of semester Charles.
Yeah, it is.
We do comb through the data. We ask them for anecdotal feedback, and we do comb through the data. And there are things like they want bigger bags of Cheez-Its, for example. And so, I mean, there's things like that all the way to, you know, this was great, but here are some suggestions for improvement. I'd like to learn about this and this. So we try to take all of that feedback into consideration and continue to improve the event.
Cheez-Its.
Always
Cheez-Its
Cheez-Its.
includes
Some
always
people
Cheez-Its.
just really like
Hey, now listen, as someone who has not had dinner, stop.
I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Yes.
So, having attended the August 2018 elementary teacher, I suspect had you asked the question, I am excited to see my friends.
Yes.
I think you probably would have had 99% agree because the excitement and the energy in that building was phenomenal.
Yes.
So, yeah.
It was, it does feel like a really exciting event, and a lot of times they're coming out very excited about their learning. So,
And I
yes.
said when I went into a couple of sessions, and the nice thing was there were so many individual sessions with so many different areas of interest. They were small groups, and I think there was a lot of interaction going on in those.
Yes.
And that was just my observations from room to room, but I'm a little surprised that, I'm just surprised having been there and been in several sessions, that it wasn't a little bit higher, but, you know, you can have a few that would strongly disagree and bring that down.
Good work. And can you remind us, this is a paid part of the contract?
It's built into their professional learning calendar and their hours. Yes, it's built into the calendar. Yes. Any other questions? Thank you. Back again. So the next piece of data is still a portion of the needs assessment, but really speaks to site professional learning. So again, that's the learning that's designed by leaders and teacher teams. They come every spring, and they get a day of reflection to look at their data and to make plans for their particular site for the upcoming year. And so these statements are reflective of teachers' responses about how that learning looked. So at their site, was it driven by these things? Was it focused on this, and was it visible? And so of some of the facets, I picked these out intentionally because I think these are growth opportunities for us. And when we think about alignment to our metrics and putting that data through cycles of improvement, that's a place that we could do a little bit more work, as well as really making the learning more visible for our students and others that are in and out of our school. So this is a piece of the data as well that speaks specific to the site-based learning that's going on. So my final time up here at the podium will be spent on Strategy 2.18, and that's really around building leadership capacity. So the initiative that we'll look at here is the SPS Connect Leader Track. And that, just to remind you, is the 18-month program that we provide to aspiring leaders, so current teachers that are looking to become a leader in our system, whether that's at a department side or a building level or site leader. And we really want to heighten their awareness to the system, give them kind of that insider look to what it might look and feel like to be a leader in our system. One of the components of that is that they serve as a site administrator during a June or July session of Explore. And so this is that track and what we hope to have happen. So the feedback here is overly positive, and I would say that also look at the end and also remember that we've only done one cohort, right? So we've only been through one 18-month cohort of participants. So what I can tell you is that of those 16 participants, 6 are currently serving in leadership positions in SPS, either at the department or building level this year. So when we look at programming and making some modifications, we've used the open-ended responses as a gauge for how we can do even better than we did the first round at getting these people an opportunity to see what it looks like to be a leader in SPS.
So that next.
You want to improve on that number? I'm sorry,
Well,
I'm just mathematically, I'm asking you.
So
what
again,
you just said.
strongly agree are the indicators that you're seeing there, so people were favorable. But I do think always being open to continue to shift our practice to make it even more applicable. There were some open-ended responses, gave us some good insights into maybe how we calendar. So one of the recommendations has been that instead of starting this programming in January, we would start it in August so that it would align with our partnerships to universities so that they could have that college, that credit piece for those that are looking to get a higher degree. So some of those system things would make a difference maybe in who comes out and who is a part of this program.
Fair enough.
And I'm done, leaving you officially.
Thank you, Nicole. Good to see you.
Well, this is what I think is the most exciting part of our presentation, and this is where we owe you all a big thank you, and that is when we're looking at compensation and benefits for staff. And tonight we're going to look at, particularly at our teaching staff, our salary schedule, as well as the lifetime earning potential for teachers in SPS. Our compensation study that's currently underway is going to give us some additional insights, particularly on the classified side, and so we're not ready to report on that this evening. But we want to take a quick look first at our salary schedule and where we fall compared to our regional peers. And so you have a handout before you this evening that ranks SPS in relation to our neighbors. And you will see that over 96.5% of our teachers are compensated at a rate that is the highest in our region. And I counted these numbers twice. Once I came up with 61, more than twice, 61 and then 64 of our teachers who fall in that number 2 category, which may be from a few $100s up just slightly more. But it's significant, your investment in our staff and our teachers, particularly the compensation. And thank you for the investment for this current year in our early bachelor's teachers, as well as our Master Plus 30 and our doctorate teachers on the high end of those scales. Your investment helps us to hire and retain teachers long term, and so I think this speaks volumes about your commitment to our teachers. And then the next page.
Can
yes.
I say something? Even
Certainly.
though Alina asked me not to. So when I arrived on this board, there were a lot more colors here.
Yeah.
And I do want to say that it is a commitment of this group that this be green. Typically, when I think of how we're educating people throughout Missouri, I don't consider it competitive. It'd be nice if we all achieved, but it was important to us to win this one. So thank you, because that was important.
Well,
Yeah, Kim, is it okay if I said that? She was whispering to me not to say anything, but I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that, but I do see a little yellow, so we could,
There is
I'm not saying
opportunity
we're
for
done or
improvement,
anything.
certainly, and we will continue to look at those.
Yeah, I
so-
love lime green and other stuff here. We want to be decidedly Kelly.
So the next data point we wanted to take a look at, and we did not look at this last year when we had our conversation, was the potential lifetime earnings in our district as compared to our neighbors. And so what you'll see, if a teacher comes into our system and the first 10 years serves with a bachelor's degree and then completes their master's program, and then steps 11 through 30 are on that master's scale, the lifetime earnings potential here at SPS is over $1.6 million. And you'll see the differential is rather significant, ranging, when I look at our neighbors, $72,500 lower to $359,000 lower lifetime earnings potential in our region. And so what this says to us is that we are committed to those who commit to SPS. That you come into SPS early in your career, you start your career with us, and you continue to work with SPS throughout that career and commit those 30 years of professional service. Not only do we and our students benefit from having those experienced teachers with us, but they also benefit from that experience and benefit financially from their commitment in the district. And so again, thank you for that commitment and that support of our teachers.
Does this assume this year's starting salary for a first-year teacher?
Yes. It's using the current salary schedules for all of those districts, the current year. That was developed in 17-18 for this school year.
Okay.
And so the next, we want to take a very quick look at recognition program. And this is a review of our conversation last spring when we had an opportunity to look at both service recognition and the Power of One program that was initiated last year in the district. And just a quick overview for us. Last year we had 80 certified staff members who were recognized for 25 to 30 plus years of experience with SPS, so years of service. And then we had 32 support staff members who were recognized for 25 to 30 plus years, and those programs are continuing into this year. You've had the opportunity to see some of those certified employees here. Just at our last meeting, there were a number that were recognized. And so that is an initiative that is continuing this school year and moving forward. And then the Power of One last year was hugely successful. We had an opportunity to have over 1,500 individual employees who were honored through that recognition process, and it was a receive one, give one opportunity, which meant that individuals who were recognized for their commitment and outstanding service were also given the power to then recognize their colleagues or others in the district for their exceptional service as well. And that resulted in a number of videos, board recognitions, and quite a flurry on social media, and even in students beginning their own Power of One recognition program in a building after seeing their teacher and others in their building recognized. And that has then grown into the Power of One team, which we heard about earlier this evening, and that effort is continuing into the current school year. And then the last is also just a reminder of data that you saw earlier this fall, and that is our efforts with regard to collaborative, engaging cultures, ensuring that we are supportive and highly collaborative throughout the district. And we did see the data, underlying data that is in the report, and there's also a slide here, material, earlier in the fall. But a couple of key points we just wanted to point out to you tonight with regard to satisfaction and engagement. When we look at building staff and our building academic support, 82% of staff indicated that they were satisfied, highly satisfied, engaged, or highly engaged, which is a significant accomplishment. Certainly room for growth, continued opportunity there, but very high engagement and satisfaction level. Building staff, that same group represented over 1,800 employees, a higher response rate than we'd seen previously from that group, which also gave us some anecdotal information about their certainly involvement and engagement at some level. Operations staff, it was a little bit lower on the engagement and satisfaction, reporting just over 75%, but they had a higher percentage of the staff it's not a slide, it's in the handout, I apologize. But they had a higher percentage of neutral, and they had the lowest rate of dissatisfaction or disengagement at 4%. The other building staff and building academic staff were in the 5.5% to 6% on the dissatisfaction or disengagement. So great effort with our operations staff.
Less emotion.
And this is just a summary of the information I just described. And so our conclusions and next steps, you have a separate sheet that kind of highlights our plans moving forward. We currently have 11 strategies, and we believed as we worked through this process that we could combine some of those, streamline that a bit, and move to 8 strategies that will affect the sort of change that we believe continues to be forthcoming. And so combining 2.1.1 and 3 into a new 2.1, because both of those strategies revolve around new teachers and supports for new teachers and induction. We want to ensure that we broaden that to include all staff, and so we are looking at sustain and refine support for new teachers, leaders, and staff to ensure early career ongoing success, including an understanding of culture, climate, and professional expectations that are supported through monitoring of professional growth and practice. So a more all-encompassing look at that process. We also will be combining 2.1.2 and 0.4 that those revolve around our partnerships as well as the applicant pool to build a more robust recruitment, hiring, and support process, and that will now reflect, utilize, enhanced, and effective recruitment strategies along with our partnerships with local universities in order to maximize access to, interest in, and preparation for working with SPS in support, teaching, and leadership positions, so that we expand that beyond our teaching focus. 2.1.5 becomes a new 2.1.3, and we will have specific focus on diversification of our staff, as well as professional learning that was a focus within that area previously. And that new strategy indicates recruit, develop, support, and retain an effective, qualified, and diverse workforce of teachers, staff, and leaders to better meet the needs of students. And then 2.1.6 becomes renumbered. Ensure that all employees receive regular feedback to improve performance that positively impacts students and schools. We are then looking at 2.1.7, which becomes a new 2.1.5, and it will be refined to include all staff. Sustain and implement appropriate job-embedded professional learning for all staff, focused on creating and supporting relevant and engaging learning environments for every student through enhanced professional and technical skill of staff. And then 2.1.8 will become 2.1.6, and that will remain as is. Identify staff aspiring to leadership roles, measure their potential for success, and implement strategies to support their development and build leadership capacity. 2.1.9 becomes 2.1.7. Offer that competitive salary and benefits packages that are tailored to the needs of employees and their families. And then we're going to combine 10 and 11 into a new 2.1.8 to ensure a highly collaborative and engaging culture focused on success and recognition of each employee at each work location throughout the district. And so we will continue to refine our practices, support these strategies to ensure that we continue to make progress toward ensuring that we have those effective and qualified employees in every position throughout the district. Be glad to answer any questions you might have. Well, thank you again for the opportunity. We appreciate it.
I want to say to you, Penny, and to the others who presented and supported in putting this report together, thank you. It's good work, and I really appreciate the way you've come up with the conclusions and the next steps. Collapsed those 11 to 8 and made it a little bit more relevant and to the point. I think these focus area reports are really rigorous this year, and I appreciate that. They're just we're getting better with this strategic plan and working our focus areas and spreading out how the work is being done. It's really good to see. This is important stuff. So thank you.
Well, thank you all for your support and your commitment to our students and our staff.
We are going to move into section 13, report from administration. Dr. Jungman, you're up.
Yeah, we'll run through the team. Ms. Carroll, do you have anything?
Sure. Okay. So I will share that Dr. Shaw and I have meetings scheduled already, architectural firm teams this next week. So that work is moving behind the scenes. And also under his responsibility area, he reports that we do have project coordinators working through bid specs on a number of projects such as roofs and parking lots and HVAC, gym floors, that type of thing. So those bids will be coming forward very soon to be led and then brought to you for approval so that we can get to work in the summertime. So all is well.
Today, I just want to give a shout out to OTC and our foundation for helping host our middle school STEM conference at OTC today. Students from every middle school kind of engaging with coding, web design, robotics. It was really a great conference, and thanks to Jarrett and Mr. Kroll, who kind of really are the spearhead and energy behind it. So great job to them. I want to put it on your calendar if you're available, but on December 20th at 12 will be Studi High School's graduation, and we would love to have you there if you're available. Also, I know we get a lot of, it's blue and gold, and we're getting ready for the Tournament of Champions, but I don't want you to forget about the pink and white. The pink and white is 32 teams. It's the largest women's high school basketball tournament in the state, and it is from December 26th through the 29th, so we hope you're able to join us there. Then lastly, just want to thank our students, staff, teachers for a great semester. I know we still have a little time left, and they still have a lot of work to do, but they put in a lot of effort and a lot of energy, and we appreciate everything they do for our kids, so thank you.
Anything else to add?
I just want to say thank you to the team for being here and for helping with this process day to day and for their efforts, particularly for tonight. And my shameless plug, again, hiring season is upon us, and so any recommendations, names, please pass those along to us. And candidates know that we are interested and that we do engage in an early hiring process, and we're very interested in having conversations with them.
Perfect. Open for business.
I know at the last meeting I previewed the second round of our engagement meetings with our parents, our teachers, and our students, and we're pleased for those were very well attended, and we had great feedback from those constituents, and looking forward to continuing that opportunity and growing that as we move forward. I wanted to highlight just a few things on SPS.org. We continue to try to drive traffic there to feature the good work and good news of our district. Dr. Dawson mentioned the OTC Computer Science Con 200. That's featured here today, a story. We have a great feature here on a traveling robot that allows a kindergarten student in Delaware to participate. So encourage people to read that story. We have a feature on Mr. Sykes from Gray Elementary and his recognition. We featured the Tournament of Champions ticket sales, which are on now, and that again runs the 17th through 19th. And then we have a fun story on the Power of One team recognition at Disney. And we saw the students lining the halls to thank the bus drivers who safely transport them to and from school every day. And there was a bus line magazine picked up that, and also that as well. So fun story there. And then last, I just wanted to preview that we'll be coming to you on January 8th with our year-end report for new focus area 4 and communications. We'll be looking forward to highlighting the ways that our communications team is establishing a baseline for measuring our work moving forward. So that will be coming later.
Thanks to the team. I'll move straight to legislative update if that's okay. Several of you were able to participate in the legislative reception today at 4 o'clock at Campbell. It was great to have a few of our legislators with us talking about the priorities that you have adopted for the upcoming session, as well as some great news what they see coming from either their position or from the House or the Senate as a whole, as well as at the federal level. So appreciate you being a part of that. I appreciated those conversations. That being said, we also do one-on-one conversations. So that large group opportunity exists, but I am meeting individually on school sites and other locations, representative and senator, to make sure they have a kind of a clear sense of your priorities that you've set, as well as get an opportunity to be exposed to our system and our classroom. So I think they really enjoyed being in our early childhood center. It was an awesome opportunity for us to, number one, say thank you, because that would not be possible without the full funding of the formula. We need to continue to recognize that as we see our representatives and senators moving forward. Other things in that same vein, the freshmen weren't able, they call them that, right, new House members, the freshmen weren't able to be with us today because they're on a statewide tour. They were, good news, in Springfield last week, so the Metro Partnership to host them, which we're a member of, at OTC, and some of their new automotive space, or diesel space. So awesome opportunity to have the freshmen in Springfield and talk about the great things going on throughout the community. Those are the big things as we build up to the start of session, which will undoubtedly be a busy session just like everyone is. But I think what we did hear from a few of them is they're hoping for it to be a little less drama and more calm this year. So we're looking forward to be a part of that work. So that's it on the legislative update.
Thank you. And I know we do a good job of saying our piece as we go along, but do you have anything they want to add, just generally, discussion or comments?
Just very briefly, and I promise very briefly.
Yes, sir.
Alina and I and Jerry had the opportunity to attend the Springfield Council of PTA's meeting, which was terrific. Wonderful musical performance at Pleasant View. And I think the highlight, the kind of panel discussion, Q&A that Alina Principal and Bridget conducted on looking ahead to the bond proposal. And I think it was a good opportunity to answer some questions, to kind of put to rest some anxiety, and frankly, to correct some misinformation, for example, about sort of this is all about open classrooms, which is not the case, and people were open about asking the question. We were able to respond to it. Also sort of dealing with, the anxieties about closing, is this the only one? And I think it's important that we take full advantage of the opportunity to listen, to hear, and as appropriate, to respond and to provide the right kind of information. So it was a really good way, Steve. You did a terrific job running the meeting.
That was nice. Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, a couple things. And this is more important than maybe it sounds, but I just want to offer kudos to whoever put this together. The design of this is really quite nice. This is the SPS 2019 legislative platform. This kind of stuff matters, and this is really well done. Whoever put it together, great job.
Communications team for taking your words and putting them in print.
Well, it's just a really engaging piece. There's two of our three speakers tonight reminded me at this season about the role that churches and the faith community plays in supporting the schools. And I noticed that I'm going to my granddaughter's Christmas
School
program, yeah. And they can't fit in their existing building. It's not big enough for that. And so there's a church 4 or 5 lots away, just west of the school, and that hosts the holiday program. I think that's great for the church. I think it's good for the school. It's certainly good for the community. I just appreciate their kind of support. And then the second thing, it just reminds me of in my own church how we week in, week out are fix for the kids at Wilder Elementary, and that these partnerships that Marty and her team help to foster are so important, and the faith community does a great job with that. So I just wanted that to be acknowledged, especially given what we heard.
Great. Anyone else? So, if you have any plus deltas, feel free to mention those. And I will remind you all that we will meet again on January 8th for our study session. And we will be going into exec tonight, so may I have a motion that the board meets in executive session to discuss real estate and personnel matters as presided in sections 610.021 subsections 2, 3, and 13 of the revised statutes of Missouri. Thank you, Alina, and do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Charles, and let's vote. Thank you all for sticking. Have a good evening.